Today, we will travel to the very heart of Central Asia to uncover the history of the remarkable region of Sogdiana and also to get acquainted with the heritage of its ancient people. In ancient and early medieval times, Sogdiana was not just a land of caravans, but a true crossroads of civilization. Here, the paths of merchants, philosophers, and warriors crossed, and the culture of the region absorbed the best from both East and West. I will tell you how the Sogdians built a unique society, what role trade, religion, and art played in their lives, and why Sogdiana is rightfully called the Pearl of the Silk Road. Welcome to the Amazing History Channel, a channel for those who truly love history. We continue our series on the ancient civilizations of the East. Before we begin this episode, I want to remind you, support the channel. You can do this through sponsorship on YouTube or Patreon. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a kind comment. And now, let's dive into the history of Sogdiana. Sogdiana, or Sogd, is one of the most remarkable civilizations in Central Asia, located mainly between the Sir-Daria and Amu-Daria rivers. Today, its lands cover the territories of modern Uzbekistan, northern Tajikistan, and southern Kyrgyzstan. This region is famous for its fertile valleys, swift rivers, and was a true oasis among the harsh landscapes of Central Asia. Sogdiana included such famous cities as Samarkand and Bukhara, major centers that have been inhabited by Sogdians since ancient times. For centuries, Sogdiana played a key role in Eurasian trade, serving as the heart of the Silk Road. This region connected the civilizations of China, India, Persia, and the Mediterranean. And the Sogdians became one of the main intermediaries on this trade route. The Sogdians were a people of Eastern Iranian origin who spoke the Sogdian language, which was related to Old Persian and Avestan. They were at a crossroads of cultural influences from neighboring peoples, including Persia. They played a significant role in the formation of the Iranian world, although they often maintained their independence. Sogdiana's early history dates back centuries and remains mysterious. The oldest archaeological finds from settlements such as Sarazim, dated to the 4th-3rd millennia BC, indicate a high level of development in agriculture, crafts, and trade. This was already the case in the Neolithic era. Although the inhabitants of Sarazim were not Sogdians in the usual sense, they are likely the ancestors of the Sogdians and other Eastern Iranian peoples. These ancient societies were also connected with the civilization of the Bactria-Magiana archaeological complex, located to the south. Sogdiana held a special place in the beliefs of the ancient Iranian peoples. In the sacred text of the Zoroastrians, the Avesta, Sogdiana is mentioned as one of the 16 best lands created by the god Ahura Mazda for the Iranian peoples. This region was considered blessed, despite harsh natural conditions and periodic disasters such as severe winters and the threat of raids. In ancient times, Sogdiana was inhabited by a mix of settled farmers and nomadic tribes, which created a unique cultural synthesis. While their Western Persian relatives were building the Achaemenid Empire, the Sogdians were developing their cities and strengthening trade relations. By the 5th century BC, these communities had grown large enough to attract the attention of Shahanshah Cyrus the Great, who subdued Sogdiana and incorporated it into his empire. Sogdiana probably became part of the satrapy of Bactria, although it retained a certain degree of autonomy. Despite being incorporated into the Achaemenid Empire, Sogdiana remained one of the most difficult regions to govern. The mountainous landscapes and the independent spirit of the Sogdians made control difficult, and the population periodically rose in rebellion. Nevertheless, the Sogdians supported the central authority of Persia, and for example sent troops to assist Xerxes the Fun during his campaigns against Greece. In the 4th century BC, during the reign of Artaxerxes II, the Sogdians launched a major uprising aimed at freeing themselves from the Achaemenid yoke. This movement was probably part of a broader wave of instability in the eastern provinces of Persia. After the collapse of Achaemenid rule, the region was fragmented for some time into small independent principalities governed by local warlords. Sogdiana once again found itself at the center of global events with the arrival of Alexander the Great. After his victory over the Achaemenid king Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander turned his attention to the eastern satrapies. The rapid advance of his army was accompanied not only by triumphs, but also by brutal acts of repression, especially in the mountainous regions of Sogdiana, where the local population put up fierce resistance. Greek sources highlight the name Spitamenes, one of the most prominent leaders of the Sogdians. This talented commander used guerrilla tactics, delivering crushing blows to the Macedonian troops and avoiding open battles. His tactics slowed down Alexander's advance, forcing the Greeks to wage exhausting wars in hard-to-reach terrain. However, Spitamenes was betrayed by his allies, the nomadic Massagetae, who killed him in hopes of making peace with the Macedonians. His death became a turning point in the struggle with Sogdiana. He became an opponent of the Sogdians. One of Alexander's key campaigns in Sogdiana was the siege of the Sogdian Rock, a fortress considered impregnable. Here, Alexander captured Roxana, the daughter of the Sogdian aristocrat Oxyartes, who soon became his wife. This alliance not only strengthened Alexander's position in the region, but also became part of his strategy to integrate the local nobility into the Macedonian Empire. After suppressing the resistance, Alexander left part of his army in Sogdiana and carried out a series of administrative reforms. He appointed Sogdian leaders as satraps and encouraged marriages between Macedonians and local women. These marriages, such as the union of Apama, the daughter of Spitamenes, with the Macedonian commander Seleucus III Nicator, created strong ties between the Greco-Macedonian authority and the local elite. After the death of Alexander in 323, BC Sogdiana became part of the Seleucid state, founded by Seleucus I. His son Antiochus I, born to the Sogdian aristocrat Apama, was half Sogdian, which emphasized the importance of integrating the local elites. However, despite his roots, Antiochus I was unlikely to be closely connected with his mother's culture and language, as the Macedonian elites primarily remained loyal to Greek heritage. In the middle of the 3rd century BC, the power of the Seleucids in the east began to weaken. The satrap of Bactria, Diodotus Thene, declared independence, founding the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, which included Sogdiana. This state became an important cultural and trade center, combining elements of Greek, Persian, and local traditions. Despite this, the Greco-Bactrian kingdom faced numerous internal conflicts and external threats, including invasions by the nomadic Saka and Yuezhi tribes. The gradual decline of the Greco-Bactrian kingdom did not destroy the cultural potential of Sogdiana. On the contrary, the interaction of various peoples and traditions during this period laid the foundation for the future cultural and economic flourishing of the region. Sometime in the 1st century BC, a significant part of Sogdiana came under the control of the Indo-Scythian kingdom, which temporarily included this region in its territories. However, this period did not last long and had only a limited impact on Sogdian culture and social structure. Historical records about the Scythian presence in Sogdiana are extremely scarce, and most of the information about it is based on indirect evidence. Soon after this, a more powerful force appeared on the historical stage, the Kushan Empire, founded by the Yuezhi tribes, an Indo-European people whose ancestors were likely related to the Sogdians and other Iranian-speaking groups of the region. Around the 1st century AD, the Yuezhi founded an empire that stretched from Bactria to central India. The Sogdians, who were on the periphery of the Kushan Empire, were presumably within the sphere of influence of the Kangju Confederation, which is mentioned in Chinese chronicles. This mysterious semi-nomadic group probably governed through a system of tribal chiefs, but their social and political organization is not fully understood. Sources indicate that Kangju was to some degree dependent on the Kushans, but the extent of this dependence remains a subject of debate among historians. Meanwhile, the Kushan Empire became not only a military and political power, but also a key link in Eurasian trade. Although the Kushans are often seen as intermediaries, modern historians emphasize their active role in the region's economic growth, thanks to the development of agriculture, crafts, and urbanization. This economic boom contributed to the migration of the Sogdians to cities and their involvement in Silk Road trade. By the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, the Kushan Empire began to disintegrate, giving way to new powers such as the Sassanid Empire and the nomadic tribes of the White Huns or Hephthalites. At the same time, the Kangju Confederation declined and disintegrated, paving the way for the emergence of independent Sogdian city-states such as the Bukharhudas and the Principality of Fergana. These city-states, although they formally recognized the suzerainty of powers such as the Hephthalites, largely retained their autonomy. Sometimes they did not completely free themselves from external control, but they created their own political, economic, and cultural systems. From the 4th to the 7th centuries AD, the Sogdians became some of the most influential merchants of the Silk Road. They played a key role in the exchange of silk, jewels, spices, and works of art between different regions of Eurasia, from India to Tang Dynasty China, from Persia to Byzantium. Their trading activity brought significant wealth to cities such as Panjikent, Samarkand, and Aksikat, which turned into cosmopolitan centers. These cities became places where cultures, languages, and religions interacted. The Sogdians not only contributed to the development of trade, but also actively participated in the spread of cultural and religious traditions. During this period, religions such as Buddhism, Manichaeism, Zoroastrianism, and Nestorian Christianity became widespread in the region. The Sogdians not only adopted many of these teachings, but also played an important role in spreading them along the Silk Road to the west, east, and south. Next, let's take a closer look at Sogdian society and its golden age. The era when it was at the very center of trade and cultural exchange on the Silk Road. Although in earlier periods many Sogdians led a nomadic lifestyle, by the 4th to 7th centuries, AD Sogdian society had become predominantly urbanized. The cities I have already mentioned, Samarkand, Panjikent, Bukhara, and Aksikat, became thriving centers of trade, art, and crafts. Sogdian society had a pronounced social stratification. Each city-state was ruled by kings and queens, whose power was supported by a group of aristocrats and wealthy merchants. These rulers and their entourage controlled a significant portion of the wealth accumulated through trade and crafts. The political structure of Sogdian cities remains insufficiently studied, but it is known that some of them had councils of elders, and relations between the cities could include elements of diplomacy and competition. The Sogdians were known for both their trade and their art. Sogdian art of the Silk Road era was vibrant, multifaceted, and absorbed the influences of many cultures, including Indian, Hellenistic, Persian, and Chinese. The beautiful frescoes and reliefs found in the excavations of Panjikent demonstrate a rich color palette and a complex style, subjects depicting both religious and secular scenes. Metallurgy was one of the key specializations of the Sogdians. They created exquisite items made of gold, silver, and bronze, which were in demand throughout the entire region. Sogdian craftsmen were known for their ability to combine traditional techniques with innovations borrowed from neighboring civilizations. The Sogdians not only sold goods, but also actively engaged in diplomacy. Starting from the 7th century, correspondence with the Chinese court has been preserved, confirming their significant influence in the eastern regions. They also formed diasporas along the entire Silk Road, from China to Persia. These trading communities played a crucial role in spreading goods, technologies, and cultural ideas. But they were also involved in the darker aspects of trade, including the sale of slaves. The Sogdians left behind a rich cultural legacy in the form of literary texts written in their language, which used a variant of the Aramaic script. This script, known for its flexibility, made it possible to record both trade agreements and religious literary works. Judging by the variety of preserved texts, Sogdian society achieved a high level of literacy for its time, which was a result of their extensive trade connections and the need to record complex commercial transactions. Sogdiana, located at the crossroads of Eurasian trade routes, was not just a center of commerce, but also a stage for unique religious interaction. The Sogdians, with their tendency to synthesize cultures and ideas, became the keepers and transmitters of many religious teachings. The foundation of the Sogdians' religious life was the Eastern Iranian pantheons, which traced back to the ancient traditions of Central Asia. These beliefs were closely connected with Zoroastrianism, but the Sogdians maintained their distinct polytheistic orientation, worshipping many natural and anthropomorphic gods. Each city had its own patron god, who was worshipped with particular devotion. For example, Nana, the goddess of fertility and nature, was especially popular. Her artistic depiction from Panjikent, where she holds the sun and the moon while sitting on a lion, demonstrates a strong influence of Indian culture. This openness to interaction makes the Sogdian religion unique and multifaceted. Another important deity was Veshpakar. the god of wind who, according to legends, provided protection to caravans and travelers. These deities reflected the everyday needs of the Sogdians: safety on the road, fertility of the land, and success in trade. One of the most unusual religions that flourished in Sogdiana was Manichaeism, a dualistic doctrine founded by the prophet Mani in the 3rd century AD. This religion, which incorporated elements of Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and Christianity, found fertile ground in Sogdiana. The Sogdians played a crucial role in spreading Manichaeism along the Silk Road, especially in China. It was Sogdian missionaries who brought this faith to the Celestial Empire, where it experienced its rise and later its decline. Interestingly, the Sogdian Manichaeans developed a unique branch of this religion, which at a certain point split off from the main center in Ctesiphon. Their interpretation of Manichaean teachings continued to exist in the form of small communities, even after the decline of Manichaeism in other parts of Eurasia. Nestorian Christianity, which spread to Mesopotamia and Persia, became another important religion of the region. Nestorian missionaries brought their ideas to Sogdian cities, where they were translated into the Sogdian language. These translations were very important for the further spread of Christianity in China, where it became known as Jingjiao, the religion of the luminous teaching. The Sogdians also actively interacted with Buddhism, especially its Mahayana branch. Buddhist communities flourished in the region, leaving behind many works of art and translations. Translations of Buddhist texts into the Sogdian language, such as sutras and Mahayana texts, influenced the Chinese canon. Buddhism not only became part of the spiritual landscape of the region, but also played an important role in strengthening cultural ties between Sogdiana, India, and China. Alongside the dominant religions in Sogdiana, there were minorities who practiced Judaism, as evidenced by the ancestors of the Bukharan Jews, as well as followers of Hindu cults, such as Shaivism. These minorities contributed to the rich fabric of Sogdian religious diversity. In the 6th to 8th centuries, the Sogdian city-states underwent significant changes related to the political and cultural processes of that time. The Turkic Khaganate, which became the dominant power in Central Asia, included Sogdiana in its sphere of influence, but at the same time preserved the autonomy of the local elites. However, soon new players emerged whose influence changed the face of the region for centuries. By the 7th century, the Islamic Caliphate began to rapidly expand its borders, uniting the Arabian Peninsula and crushing the Sassanid Empire. By the 8th century, the Caliphate had reached Mawaranahar, where it faced fierce resistance from the Sogdians. Despite the Sogdian nobility appealing to China for help, the Tang Emperor was unable to provide effective support. In 722, Arab forces captured Samarkand, the strategic and cultural center of Sogdiana. The conquest was accompanied by significant economic and religious transformations. The Sogdians, while preserving their trading traditions, gradually faced changes in the administrative system. The Arab rulers introduced taxes such as jizya, a mandatory tax for non-Muslims, which became an incentive for many to convert to Islam. The Islamization of the region did not happen immediately. The Sogdians, known for their ability to preserve cultural heritage, created unique mixed religious traditions that combined elements of Islam, Zoroastrianism, and local beliefs. These traditions often became the foundation for resistance to Arab rule. One of the most striking examples of such resistance was the uprising of the people in white clothes, led by Mukana. His teachings combined ideas about the struggle between light and darkness, mystical views of Islam, and expectations of a messianic savior. Mukana proclaimed himself the incarnation of God and led an uprising challenging the Abbasid Caliphate. Although the uprising was suppressed, it left a significant mark on the region's history as one of the largest movements against Islamization. Over time, the traditional beliefs of the Sogdians, polytheism and Zoroastrianism gave way to Islam. By the 9th century, Islam became the region's main religion, aided by the Sogdian elite's integration into Muslim society. The adoption of Islam was accompanied by changes in many norms, including the use of the Arabic language in administration and religious life. However, the Sogdian language remained in use in everyday life and was even used in literature until the early Middle Ages. Islamization did not destroy the unique cultural heritage of the Sogdians, it transformed it. Sogdian cities such as Samarkand and Bukhara retained their role as major trade and cultural centers. It was here that the formation of a new Persian cosmopolitan culture began, which became the foundation for great Islamic dynasties such as the Samanids. The Samanid state revived the traditions of ancient Iran, combining them with Islamic ideas. Samarkand and Bukhara became major centers of science, art, and literature. The Arabic alphabet began to be used for writing the Persian language, which gave impetus to the development of new forms of poetry and prose. Islamization completed the process of integrating Sogdiana into the cultural and political space of the Islamic world. However, traces of the former Sogdian culture have been preserved in crafts, art, and even in some religious customs. This process can be seen not as destruction, but as a transformation of Sogdiana's rich heritage, which made it an important bridge between the ancient and medieval worlds. Despite historical changes, the legacy of Sogdian culture is still alive today. The modern descendants of the Sogdians, the Yagnobis, continue to live in the mountains of Tajikistan, preserving a unique language that directly descends from Sogdian. Although historians often describe Sogdiana as a transit region through which caravans passed, its cities, such as Samarkand and Panjikent, were unique cultural centers. These cities were no less luxurious and wealthy than such great capitals as Chang'an in China or Constantinople in the Eastern Roman Empire. Sogdian merchants were not only masters of trade along the Silk Road, but also played a key role in transmitting philosophical and religious texts that influenced the cultural development of all Eurasia. The Sogdians were one of the most vibrant and distinctive peoples of the ancient world. Their numerous deities, magnificent cities, and mastery in arts and crafts embodied the wealth and complexity of the Silk Road era. This culture combined the creative energy, sophistication, and contradictions inherent in great civilizations. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.